Why are they up in Galilee? How far is Judea from Galilee? How far is Judea from Galilee? Okay. How long did it take Jesus and how long did it take Joseph and Mary and the whole entourage to get from Galilee? How many days journey? On foot. So you're looking about 100 miles, about 150, 100 miles up and down from Galilee back down to Judea. So over 100 miles a journey and travel. So they're up in Galilee by the Sea of Galilee in this part of Jesus' ministry. Why are all them people from Judea up there? Huh? They're up there to listen to Jesus. So what does that mean about Christ? The news of his teachings, what has spread. And so now you got the Jews and all them, they up there, what they done sent their representatives like, y'all better get up to Galilee and find out who this guy is. Who's this Jesus? Who's this new radical teacher? So yeah, his teaching, news of it is then spread down to Judea. So folk are up there, have come up there, and they are wanting to hear who is this Jesus that's talking about. And so so you have people from Judea and from Galilee and all that are there in that multitude. And so he went up into a mountain. So now you have to, first of all, think about when we think about mountains, everybody, when they think about mountains, everybody think about the mountains that they know about. You know, I'm prejudiced because I grew up next to some of the highest mountains in North America, the Rockies. So when y'all talk about, yeah, we got the Smokies and all them, I'll be like, no, y'all ain't got no mountains. No, y'all call them mountains. I mean, they are technically mountains, but you know, when I talk about, no, you ain't got no mountains. You know, we got the Rockies, which are the youngest mountains and are still, according to geologists, are still growing. Your mountains are older mountains and are already descending. They're smaller, lower mountains, but they're still mountains. So when you talk about mountains, it depends on where you're at. And then, of course, I lived in Alaska. Well, we got the highest point in North America, Denali, which used to be called Mount McKinley, but Obama changed it to Denali, the Native American name. So you know, so when you talk about mountains are all relative. You know, where I come from the Rockies, and so sometimes what y'all call mountains, I'm like, oh, that's a hill. Man, what y'all call mountains, I'm like, oh man, we hike that in a day. What y'all call a mountain, we hike that regularly. You know, we out of Colorado, we talking about mountains, we talking about 14, 15, 16, 17,000 feet in elevation. That's what we talking about mountains. So y'all got, you know, 6,000, 7,000 feet. We be like, okay, yeah, you missed me with those mountains, you know. So mountains is kind of a relative term. So now here around the Sea of Galilee, there's a mount. Its elevation is about 60 feet. All right. So now Jesus, as you see here on the map around the Sea of Galilee, and in between those two red points is kind of the mountain where he's at. So he's close to the sea. A lot of people around the seaside pressing, trying to see Jesus. And so Jesus kind of retires and goes up this mount. It's a mount. It's not very high in our estimates, but for them, it was a mount. It was higher. It's not a hill, but it's a mount. And so Jesus retires back up there. And so Jesus didn't have this like I have. I have this lapel mic on that comes through speakers and a PA system. They had none of that. So you had to orate, you had to talk. So naturally, you back up to a mount, which kind of serves as your kind of background. You get up high enough and you speak down and your audience is down there, it makes it like a natural amphitheater. And so that's kind of the setting that we have Jesus on this mount. And so we call it the sermon because of this long discourse that takes place. Now, this Sermon on the Mount has been called by Harvey Scott. He calls it the Christian Constitution. The Christian Constitution. A constitution, when you have a constitution, it is a set of laws and rules that organizes your government. We have a constitution which organizes our government. It limits our government. It tells you what you can do, what you can't do. So the Sermon on the Mount is like the Christians, is like our constitution. It's basically is, and this is early on in Jesus' ministry, is basically an orientation for his disciples. This is your orientation. Now, what do you expect to get when you go to orientation? Some basic instructions. So basic, Bob, you at the shipyard. Well, when you was there, if you can remember back to that date when you was a young Bob Ballas with long hair, your leather jacket on back in the day, and you went in and they said, okay, Mr. Ballas, and all the other people, and, here's your orientation. So what kind of stuff you going to figure out? Are they going to tell you in the orientation for Newport News Shipping? What kind of information should be told in that orientation? What they expect, how to be, what does it mean to be on time? How do you punch in properly? How do you punch out properly? How do you eat lunch? Where do you eat lunch? Where do you park? Where's the parking? Where's your badges and your passes? They told you, what you can bring in, how, so you learn, what does it mean to be a part of the shipyard? What does it mean to understand, how do I operate and matriculate on Newport News's campus, on the grounds? And so you get the rules and stuff. So now, with this being the Christian's constitution, what is Jesus trying to tell his disciples? What is us, or the disciples then and disciples now, what is he giving us an orientation for? How to live to get to, or not to get to the kingdom, but how to live. Thank you, brother. I was looking for that preposition. Not to get to it, but to live what? In the kingdom. This is the Constitution. Jesus is going to lay out, what does it mean to live in the kingdom? How do you live in his kingdom? Now, remember, Jesus, when he came on the scene, John came preaching repentance, but Jesus, when he came, he's preaching what is near. The kingdom is near. The kingdom is not. The king, or in other words, the King James says the kingdom is at hand. The kingdom is about to come, and I'm getting you ready. Jesus was John was preaching to repentance. Jesus is preaching that what? The kingdom is at hand. He's coming. Now, they got confused. He's not talking about a physical kingdom. Many zealots like Judas and others expecting somebody to come and sit where? On David's throne in Judea and Jerusalem. They want somebody to come back because David represents the zenith or the height of the Israelite kingdom. When David was, they were the most powerful kingdom. David, and then transferring into his son Solomon, they were at the height of their powers as a kingdom. And so after that, and then they, of course, the Southern Kingdom, they had a civil war and split up. Southern Kingdom went away into captivity, the Northern Kingdom, and they never have even scratched the surface of getting back to that point. After that, and then we look at the intertestamental period, they have been subjugated to other people, the Greeks, and now they're under the Romans, happen to be the flavor of the day as far as who's in charge. So those people have long and desired to return somebody to come back like a warrior, like that warrior spirit, like David, and conquer the Romans, kick them out, sit on David's throne, and take over and make Israel great again. And so, but Jesus, and what we quickly find out, that Jesus' purpose and principle runs afoul of that earthly kingdom, because Jesus said, as he talked to Pilate, what did he say? My kingdom's not of this world. My kingdom is not of this world. And so Jesus, who is God, and the Godhead is basically telling us, how do they feel about this earth? How does God and the Godhead feel about this earth? At one time, it was a jewel. It was the creation. It was a jewel. How do they feel about it now? Huh? Yes. So basically, they're telling you, we're done with this. We're done with the earth. Why? Because Satan and his powers have come in and influenced it. So we get all these terms of the gods of this world and darkness. And so the ideas we get with this is darkness and putrid and just totally abysmal. In fact, in Jesus' teaching, Jesus is going to tell us, and so one of his beatitudes is going to tell us, about that we as Christians, we are salt. Salt is a preservative. Salt comes and fixes stuff because the earth is messed up and it doesn't have any taste, no flavor. It masks, it has a lot of glitz and glamour and a lot of stuff on the top, but when you peel it away, it really is nothing. It has no taste. So we as Christians are down here to give the earth and give this world a little taste by us being what? The salt of the earth. We are down here to give this world some taste and flavor because it is really tasteless and favorless. So, but Jesus came to establish his kingdom, which is not of this world. So now he's giving in the Beatitudes and the Sermon on the Mount is Constitution. You know, what is it like to live in the heavenly kingdom or the spiritual kingdom? And so he's speaking to the disciples. He got the 12 apostles, and he's speaking to all the many disciples that he had at that time. And he was teaching them what it meant to be citizens in his kingdom. Now, as we looking at the Beatitudes, now there's the 8 Beatitudes, all right? But also there's some woes. If you go to Matthew 23, there's 8 woes, and they correspond to each other. So you see the 8 Beatitudes. Now, the significance of these 8 Beatitudes are coming at the beginning of his ministry. He's telling you what's life like in the kingdom, giving his constitution, telling the disciples what's it going to be like. Now, in Matthew 23, those woes, he said, woe unto the scribes and Pharisees. Brother Maxwell, when does that take place? When does that take place, Matthew? Any Bible student, when did these woes in Matthew 23 take place? During what time period of Jesus' life? The final week. Remember when he has the triumphal entry into Jerusalem, and then during that week, guess what? He has several encounters back and forth, because what? The Pharisees are gonna come at him, and the Herodians and all of them gonna come at him, trying to ask him questions, and finally he pronounces these woes, woe unto you, in Matthew 23. So this is what at the end. So these bookend his ministry. He gives you the Beatitudes. He gives you these blessed statements at the beginning, but then at the end, before he leaves, he gives us these 8 woes. And so they correspond with each other. So in the Beatitudes, he's going to tell us the kingdom is open to the poor. Blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of God. So the kingdom is open to the poor. But now let's go over to just Matthew 23 as we look at these woes. As we look at these woes, we go over to Matthew 23 and verse 13. What does Jesus say? But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut up the kingdom of heaven against men, for neither you go in yourselves, neither suffer them that are entering to go in. In Matthew 5, the kingdom is open to what? Is it open? Was it open? Did Jesus say the kingdom was open to the scribes and the Pharisees and them rulers? Who's the kingdom open to? No, what does it say? What does the Bible say? What is the word he says? The poor. Poor means to be destitute, to be without. Jesus, again and again, throughout his ministry, Jesus is telling certain people, I didn't come for you. He told the woman that came, that Brother Dismuke talked about, she passed a test. This woman was a Syro-Grecian, a Phoenician that was a half Jew. He said, I didn't really come for you. I came for the Jews. And then of the Jews, as we look at the Jews, there's certain of the Jews, he said, I didn't come for you because y'all don't need me. Who did he tell that he didn't come for them? Of the Jews, the Pharisees, the scribes, the sects, those leaders that walked around boasting. He says, I didn't come for you. In the statements, he says, those who are sick need a physician. Those who are not sick don't need a physician. So those rich religious leaders who were on the top of the Jewish system right under the Romans, who were they were just trying to keep their place in the system. The Romans were on top. The Romans gave them a lot of latitude. They don't want to lose their seat. That's why they were afraid of Jesus, because as they talked amongst themselves, like, man, if we let this guy come on, he's going to mess it up and we're going to lose our seat. We're going to lose our position. So that was their thing. They did not want to lose position. But Jesus, he didn't come for them. He said, y'all don't need me because y'all not sick. Y'all don't even know you're sick. You don't know you're sinners. So I didn't come for you. I came for who did Jesus come for? Those who were poor in spirit, those who were destitute. He's coming for those common folks who have been cast out, who have been looked over, who the Jews, remember when they came and they accused Jesus, what did they accuse him of? Being with harlots and sinners and wine bibber. They accused him of being with all the people that we don't like. That's what the scribes and Pharisees said. They came and asked his disciples, why does your master eat with these people and eat with those people? Those are all the people we don't like. We don't like the harlots and the poor people and those who are lepers and those who we've just kind of cast out of society. We don't like them because they don't have the pedigree and stuff as us. So, but Jesus, as he came, who did Jesus come to? Jesus came for what? He came for them. He came for those sinners. He came for the tax collectors and the publicans and the harlots and the lepers. And so who do we see him touching and cleanse? He healed lepers. He calls Matthew, a publican, to be one of his disciples. Goes and sees Zacchaeus in a tree, calls him down, goes to his house. He goes to those people, and even people outside of Israel, he would even heal those. So Jesus came for them. So the kingdom was open to them. But in Matthew 23 and verse 13, he says, y'all shut the kingdom up. You shut the kingdom up. You won't let you don't go in yourselves, and you won't let nobody else in the kingdom. You shut the doors to the kingdom. The kingdom is shut up. And so Jesus pronounced a woe unto them because you shut the kingdom of heaven against men. Neither go in yourselves, and you don't suffer anybody else to go in. You block the door. You won't let nobody else in. In verse 14, Jesus said that comfort for the mourners, those who mourn, that they would be eventually comfort. But in verse 14, Jesus of Matthew 23, he says, mourners are going to be distressed. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour widows' houses and for pretense make long prayers. Therefore, ye shall receive the greatest damnation. So they have long prayers in the temple and out in front of everybody so they could be showy and could get praise of men. But what do? You devour widows' houses. So when widows were in distress and could no longer pay, do you think them scribes and Pharisees were merciful to let them widows stay in their homes and try to make a way for them to survive? No, they devoured them. And then even Jesus is going to talk about Chorazin, the practice that they had of that they would tell their parents who might have been in need to get away from taking care of their parents in their older age who's in need. Those Jews would lie and tell their parents, oh, we gave our money to the temple. We pledged our money to the temple. We gave it to the temple so they could get out of not giving it and taking care of their parents. So Jesus practiced woe on. He said he put a woe on them about that practice, devouring widows' houses. So now in the New Testament, in the kingdom, what did James tell us good religion is? What is good religion? Fatherless and what? The widows. And the what? Keep yourself unspotted from the world. So that's good religion. We're supposed to take care of the fatherless, the orphans. We're supposed to take those people because what about widows and what about orphans? What does society do to them? They cast them out. You get into the foster care system. The foster care system and widows and older citizens don't have any recourse in life. People take advantage of them, take their money, make it difficult. Prices keep going up. And if you don't own your home, try to get into a senior residence. My mom's in a senior residence now. And every year she said the price keeps going up. Whoop, they raise the price. And seniors, the prices are going up on the seniors living residence. But what about your senior Social Security? Is that going up? No, it is not. So they expect seniors to pay more and more to live in a senior residence, but their Social Security is not going up. But those senior residents like, we're just keeping up with the economy. Excuse me, prices are going up in the economy, so we're just keeping up with the cost of living. But the seniors' money is not keeping up with the cost of living. So my mom and they're in a rock and a hard place, trying to figure out how they're going to survive when things keep going up. So Jesus pronounced a woe on them. You devour widows' homes, and for pretense make long prayers that you shall receive the greater damnation. In chapter the third beatitude, the meek are inheriting the earth. In verse 5 of Matthew chapter 5, the meek will inherit the earth. Those who are meek, not weak, but meek, those who are humble will inherit the earth. Now, we get over to verse 15 and Matthew 23, Jesus says, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you compass sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he is made, you make him twofold more the child of hell than yourself. So that means you'll go great distances to bring somebody in. A proselyte is somebody that they brought into the Jewish faith. But then after you bring him into the Jewish faith, he's worse off and twofold a child of hell. So Jesus says the meek are going to inherit the earth, but fanatics compassing the earth. So these Jews were fanatical in compassing the earth and bringing in disciples into Judaism. But in the end, they made them worse off than, he said, more than a child of hell, because they were fanatical about going out and try to proselyte and bring people into the faith, but they made them worse off than a child of hell. Number 4, true righteousness will be sought by true desire. You know, blessed are those who seek after and hunger and thirst after righteousness. So if you have a true desire to hunger and thirst after righteousness, but in verse 16 through 22, Jesus will talk about false righteousness and sought by causality in verses 16 through 22. Woe unto you, blind guides, which say, whosoever shall swear by the temple, it is nothing, but whosoever shall swear by the gold of the temple, he is a debtor. Ye fools and blind, for whether is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifieth the gold? And whosoever shall swear by the altar, it is nothing, but whosoever sweareth by the gift that is upon the altar, he is guilty. Ye fools, blind, for whether is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifies the gift. So he's just talking about all these little silly practices. You know, if you swear by the temple, you're nothing. But if you swear by the gold that's on the temple, so Jesus said, which is greater? Is it the gold that's on the dome of the temple, or is it the temple itself that sanctifies the gold? Are you going to swear by the altar, or are you going to swear by the gift that's on the altar? Which is greater? Is the gift that's on the altar that you're getting ready to offer, is that the greatest thing, or is it the gift that is on the altar? So all these different little practices that Jesus pronounced a woe on and is getting on them about. Ye fools and blinds, for whether it is so whosoever therefore shall swear by the altar sweareth by it and by all things thereon. And whosoever shall swear by the temple sweareth by it and by him that dwelleth therein. And then he that shall swear by heaven sweareth by the throne of God and by him that sitteth on the throne thereof. Now, if you go over to Romans chapter 10, where in Romans chapter 10, Paul would tell us what? Don't swear by heaven, because what? That's God's throne. Don't swear by the earth, because what? That's God's footstool. So don't swear by heaven or swear by earth. But back then, in those days, those Jews would, you know, it's just like you today say, today, man, Mac, that's on my mama. How many of your coworkers say, Mac, man, that's on my mama? Well, who told you to put something on your mama? I put that on my mama. I put that on God. Who told you to put something on God? Who told y'all to put something on God? I put that on God. I put that on my mama. I put that on my mama's grave. All these little things we swear by. Jesus said, do what? Let your yea be yea. I don't have to put it on nobody that you telling the truth. If you telling the truth, you telling the truth. Brother Maxwell, why I got to put it on your mama? Why Brother Maxwell got to put it on Ann Red Cross, who been gone? I put that on Ann Red. Ann Red Cross is in another place. She don't need you put nothing on her. Your word should be good. If Maxwell Red Cross says yes, I believe Maxwell Red Cross means yes. He don't have to put it on his mama. He don't have to put it on God. In fact, God never told you to put nothing on him. How you going to put something on him, the one who can put something on you? You don't put nothing on God. Don't swear by God. That's taking holy things and making them profane. Don't profane holy things. Respect holy things. But people do that. They get through these points and then we'll close out. The merciful obtaining mercy. But in Matthew 23, mercy is omitted and left done. This is where Jesus is going to talk about the weightier matters. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and you've omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These you ought to have done and not to leave the other undone. So don't do, you do those other things. You're sure you're so precise. I'm like, okay, 10% of my tithes, 10% of my mint and my cumin, I'm going to make sure I tithe that 10% of what God told me to do. But what? As far as justice, are you going to take care of somebody in the street that's getting mistreated? No. Are you going to take care of your parents? No. Mercy? No. You ain't going to do none of that stuff. But man, Lord, I'm doing the little stuff. I'm tithing my mint and my cumin. Jesus said what? You shouldn't left those weightier matters undone, but you shouldn't even leave the minor things. Do them all, but don't leave anything undone. So merciful obtaining mercy, but in Matthew 23, the mercies of omitted and left undone. Number 6, purity within and the vision of God hereafter. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. But over in Matthew chapter 23, with purity without uncleanness within, he talks about you guys. This is what Jesus commented on y'all. Y'all go out there and whitewash sepulchers. Y'all go out there and make sepulchers look so pretty. But what are they really holding? He said, the dead man's bones. But why y'all make them so pretty? We go to Arlington and Arlington's so pretty. Everything's laid out. But what? Really, it's just dead bones beneath there. But we hollow that ground and we say because of the men that died. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Jesus said the Jews were over the board with whitewashing the sepulchers and making sure they were all pretty. And Jesus said, they just dead man's bones. Other example, Jesus said, y'all take the cup and y'all make sure the cup is clean on the outside, but it's dirty on the inside. Now, I've been to somebody's house one time. I won't tell you what city it was in. We was on tour with our school, and we had to stay at some people's house. Very nice people, beautiful people. But we learned, Brother Bob, that when we went to the cabinet to get a cup, before we went to the water fountain and turned the faucet on to put water in that cup, you just better take a look in that cup because something might be in there rolling around. Those little critters, roaches and bugs and stuff like that. And so the people, city where they was in, those kind of things were pretty common. And so they were, like I say, they're beautiful people. But we just learned, like, man, if you go get a cup, you better rinse it out first. Better rinse it out because it can look beautiful. It was clean on the outside, but it might be something on the inside. So Jesus said to those Jews, y'all make sure that the cup and the plate is clean on the outside, but it's dirty on the inside. Now, how many times, mamas, have y'all gone to the cabinet and pulled some plates out to think you could use it and found that the kids the night before did not do a good job of washing the dishes? And you pull out a plate like, no, grease, spots, last week's spaghetti, Kool-Aid, dried milk. And so do you and so my mama would come down and observe the dishwashing practice. And the first thing my mama would do is go and stick her hand in the water. And what she find? That water was bone cold. Mama says, well, mama, our hands here, just too water. Mama, put some hot water in there. And then they just little squig of soap. You come down there, Brother Michael, no suds in the water. No suds nowhere. Just, it was like, did you use soap? Did you put some soap in there? So first thing, she had to come in there. She would come in there. You have a big old sink, Brother Maxwell. First thing she do, she pulled the plug. Whoop, let all that old, cold, no soap water out. Then she put the plug back in there. Then she would turn on some hot water or some very warm, very, very warm water. And then she would squeeze some liquid soap in there. And then it would see the lather come all up. And so like, go ahead. That's what your sink's supposed to look like. This is what your sink's supposed to feel like. And then you got to do what? You got to get that dish in there and get what? A little elbow grease, Brother Mac, and rub. And you can't just, kids just hit stuff. We call it a lick and a promise. You hit the outside of the cup, run it in the wrist water, and they never take the rag and stick it in the cup, Sister Myra, and twist it around. and get all that stuff down in the cup that's dried up. Never go across the plate. They just wipe the outside, run it through the rinse water, and put it in the drain. That cup, that plate, and that stuff ain't clean. And then they get dry, then they go put them on the rack, and you think what's in the rack is clean, and you come to the cupboard, and the dishes are what? Dirty. So that's what Jesus is saying. Jesus said, y'all are meticulous about cleaning the outside of your dishes, but they're dirty on the inside. So Jesus talks about purity. Very quickly close. Peacemakers, they're going to be the sons of God. Jesus called them hypocrites. They're lawless in Matthew 23, verse 27. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you like unto whitest sepulchres. So he called them hypocrites, in verse number 8, the eighth persecution, those who are persecuted, they will see God in Matthew chapter 5. And then he said, then Jesus talks about he's going to get the persecuted. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous. And I say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. So basically, Jesus said, y'all responsible for killing the prophets. And so y'all are the persecutors. And Jesus says, puts a woe on them. I'm gonna get y'all those that are persecuted. So that just shows you how the Beatitudes compare with those woes in Matthew 23. And so next week, either myself or Brother Zorn will get down into the Beatitudes themselves, starting with blessed are the poor in spirit in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 3.